Commander Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of his ship. His ship was called the Eternal Dominion. It was the biggest warship in the Kalreth Empire. Hyun-woo had 6 eyes like all his people. Right now, all 6 eyes were looking at the screen in front of him. The Kalreth Empire was very old. They had ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. No one had ever fought them and won. No one had even tried to fight them in a long time. Other species knew better. They paid tribute to the Empire. They followed the Empire's rules. They did what they were told, but these humans were different. The humans had appeared in space only 5 years ago. They came from a planet called Earth. At first they were quiet. They explored nearby star systems. They built colonies on new worlds. The Empire watched but did nothing. New species always appeared. They always learned to obey eventually. Then the humans refused to pay tribute. They said no when the Empire demanded they stop expanding. They would not become part of the Empire. They wanted to stay free, so the Empire sent a war fleet, 200 ships. Enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Hyun-woo commanded this fleet. He had conquered 12 species before. This would be his 13th. "Commander, we found them," said his tactical officer. The officer's name was Dong-min. He was young but skilled. 20 human ships. They are waiting at the edge of the Talon system. 20 ships. Hyun-woo almost laughed. The humans had brought only 20 ships to fight 200. This would not be a battle. It would be an execution. "Start the scan," Hyun-woo ordered. "I want to know everything about their ships before we destroy them." The science officer was named Ji-ho. He was even younger than Dong-min. His skin was blue, which meant he was calm. Ji-ho pressed buttons on his console. Energy beams shot out from the Eternal Dominion. These beams could see through walls. They could read power levels. They could tell what materials a ship was made from. The Empire's scanning technology was the best in the galaxy. The beams hit the human ships. Data started flowing back. Ji-ho watched his screens. Then his skin changed color. It turned purple. Purple meant fear, "Commander," Ji-ho said. His voice was shaking. "You need to see this." Hyun-woo walked over to the science station. He looked at the data on the screens. It made no sense. The numbers were wrong. They had to be wrong. "Explain," Hyun-woo said. Ji-ho pointed at the screen. "Sir, their power readings are impossible. Each human ship is producing more energy than our entire fleet combined. All 200 of our ships together make less power than one of theirs." Hyun-woo stared at the numbers. "Check the sensors." "They must be broken." "I already did, sir. 3 times. The sensors are working correctly." Ji-ho brought up more data. "And look at their hulls. The outer shell of their ships. It's not made of metal or armor plating. It's made of compressed matter." "What does that mean?" "It means they took normal matter and squeezed it until it became incredibly dense, like the core of a star. Then they shaped it into hull plating. I didn't think this was possible. The energy needed to do that is astronomical." Hyun-woo felt cold. He had fought many battles. He had seen advanced technology before. But this was different. This was beyond anything the Empire had ever encountered. "What about their weapons?" he asked. Ji-ho pulled up another screen. "Their energy weapons operate on frequencies we've never seen before. I don't even know what they do. Their kinetic weapons can shoot projectiles at nearly the speed of light. And sir," Ji-ho paused. His skin was now almost black with fear. "They have gravity technology." "What?" "They're creating artificial gravity fields around their ships. Strong ones. They can manipulate gravity itself." The bridge went silent. Every officer had stopped working. They were all listening. Gravity technology was theoretical. The Empire's best scientists said it might be possible in another 1,000 years. Maybe. The humans already had it. Hyun-woo's confidence disappeared. He had come here expecting an easy victory. Now he was looking at 20 ships that each had more firepower than his entire fleet. Ships that were protected by armor his weapons might not be able to penetrate. Ships that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. "Sir, what should we do?" asked Dong-min. Hyun-woo didn't answer right away. He was thinking. If they attacked, they would die. All 200 ships. All 70,000 crew members. The humans would destroy them easily. But if they retreated without fighting, the Empire would look weak. Other species might rebel. The Empire's power came from fear. If that fear disappeared, everything would fall apart. "Contact Fleet Marshal Dae-hyun," Hyun-woo finally said. "Send him all this data. Tell him we need new orders. Yes, sir, said the communications officer. Her name was Yunji. She started transmitting the data to the flagship. Hyunwoo looked at the screen showing the human ships. They were just sitting there, not moving, not attacking, just waiting. They had to know the Calreth fleet was here. Their sensors were probably even better than the Empire's. They could have attacked by surprise. They could have destroyed the Calreth fleet before anyone knew what was happening, but they hadn't. They were waiting. Why Jiho was still studying the scan data. Commander, I think there's something else you should know. What now? The scan was too easy. A civilization with this level of technology wouldn't leave their ships vulnerable to passive scans. They would have shielding, countermeasures, but they didn't use any. What are you saying? I'm saying they let us scan them. They wanted us to see this. They wanted us to know how powerful they are. Jiho looked at Hyunwoo. Sir, this is a warning. They're showing us their strength, so we'll think twice about attacking. Hyunwoo understood. It was actually brilliant. Instead of destroying the Calreth fleet and making the Empire angry, the humans were giving them a choice. Look at what we can do. Do you really want to fight us? It was smart, but it was also terrifying, because it meant the humans understood warfare at a level the Empire didn't. They knew that the best victory was the one you didn't have to fight for. How long until we hear from the Marshal? Hyunwoo asked. Any moment now, sir, said Yunji. Hyunwoo sat down in his command chair. He had been a warrior his entire life. He had studied tactics and strategy since he was young. He knew when he was beaten. The question was whether Fleet Marshal Dae-hyun would see it too, and whether the High Council back home would accept it. The Empire had never retreated before. The Empire had never surrendered. But the Empire had never faced an enemy like this. The waiting was the worst part. Hyunwoo watched the human ships on his screen. 20 vessels against 200. It should have been impossible for them to win. But now Hyunwoo knew the truth. It was impossible for the Empire to win. He just hoped someone with more authority than him would realize that before it was too late. The conference hall stretched 300 meters in every direction, a perfect sphere of crystalline walls that reflected the light of distant stars. Inside this massive chamber, 12 alien species sat in their designated sections, each one representing a civilization that had existed for thousands of years. The air smelled strange, a mixture of different atmospheres blended together by advanced technology. Some aliens breathed oxygen like humans, others needed methane or sulfur compounds. The environmental systems worked constantly to keep everyone alive. Taeyang Kim stood alone in the center of the sphere. He wore a simple black suit, his gray hair cut short and neat. His face showed no emotion as he looked around at the creatures judging his entire species. To his left sat the Vralics, insectoid beings with chittering mandibles and compound eyes that reflected light in rainbow patterns. To his right, the Lumini floated in containment fields, their crystalline bodies pulsing with inner light. There were others too, species whose names humans still struggled to pronounce. The Vralics representative spoke first. Its voice came through translation devices as a dry, clicking sound. Ambassador Kim, humanity has spread to 47 star systems in 200 years. This is unacceptable. Your species grows too fast, consumes too much, and respects no boundaries. Taeyang listened without interrupting. He had heard these accusations before, though never delivered with such finality. A Lumine representative added its voice, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. You are chaos given form. Every species here took 1,000 years to reach 10 systems. You did it in 50. You do not stop. You do not listen. You are dangerous. Other species joined in, each adding their complaints. Humans were too aggressive. Humans took resources without asking. Humans built weapons when they should build farms. Humans looked at the stars and saw conquest, not cooperation. The accusations continued for nearly an hour. Finally, the Vralics leader raised one of its forearms. The chamber fell silent. We have decided. Humanity will surrender all claims to systems beyond your original 10 colonies. You will submit to council oversight. Your military will be reduced to defensive forces only. You will accept our terms or you will face the consequences. Taeyang took a slow breath. He had expected this. Earth's intelligence services had intercepted communications months ago. The council was afraid of humanity, and fear made people do terrible things. It made aliens do terrible things too. I understand your position, Taeyang said calmly. His voice echoed in the vast chamber. However, humanity must decline your terms. The reaction was immediate. Several alien representatives stood or floated upward, their bodies rigid with shock. The Vrelix leader's mandibles clattered together, a sign of extreme agitation. You cannot decline, the Lumini said, its crystalline body flashing bright red. You have no choice. We are 12 civilizations. You are one. We have existed for millennia. You are children playing with fire, Taeyang nodded. Yes, we are young. Yes, we are few compared to you, but we are also free. We will not surrender our freedom because you are afraid of what we might become. The Vrelix leader stepped forward, its exoskeleton gleaming under the starlight. Then you choose war. Our peacekeeping armada consists of 800 warships. They will arrive at Earth in 30 days. We will blockade your homeworld until you accept our terms. If you resist, we will dismantle your colonies one by one. We will break your species until you learn humility. Taeyang looked at the alien with steady eyes. 800 ships is impressive. We have never fielded more than 50 in a single battle. Your point is clear. Then you will surrender? The Vrolix asked. No, Taeyang said simply. We will prepare to defend ourselves. And when your fleet arrives, you will learn something about humanity that you should have learned before making threats. We do not surrender. We adapt, we overcome, we survive. The chamber erupted into chaos. Aliens shouted in their various languages, the translation devices struggling to keep up. The Vrelix leader slammed its arms against its platform, demanding silence. When the noise finally died down, it spoke with cold finality. 30 days, Ambassador Kim. After that, we will teach your species the price of arrogance. Taeyang bowed slightly, a gesture of respect his people had practiced for thousands of years. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. Every alien eye or optical sensor followed him until he disappeared through the airlock. Hours later, Taeyang's ship entered quantum communication range with Earth. He sent his report immediately, knowing that every second counted. The message traveled faster than light, jumping through quantum-entangled relay stations scattered across human space. Deep beneath the Korean peninsula, buried under 3 kilometers of rock and reinforced concrete, Admiral Ji-won Park received the message in her command center. She was a woman of 52 years with sharp eyes and silver streaks in her black hair. She had commanded Earth's defense forces for 15 years, and in that time she had prepared for exactly this moment. Ji-won read the message 3 times, making sure she understood every word. Then she stood and walked to a secure terminal set apart from all the others. This terminal had no network connection. It could not be hacked or intercepted. She placed her hand on the biometric scanner and spoke clearly. Authorization Park G1 Alpha 7 Omega. Begin project. Indomitable final assembly. The computer confirmed her identity through DNA analysis, retinal scan and voice pattern recognition. Then it sent signals through hardwired connections to facilities scattered across the solar system. In orbit around Saturn's moon Titan, massive construction platforms powered up for the first time in months. In the asteroid belt, transport ships began loading their cargo. On Mars, engineers received their activation orders and started their journey to the assembly point. For 15 years, humanity had been building something in secret. They had pulled resources from dozens of colonies, diverted funding from public projects, and told elaborate lies to cover their tracks. Every human leader knew about Project Indomitable. The public did not. The aliens certainly did not. Ji-won walked through the command center to an observation room that few people ever entered. She pressed her hand against another scanner and heavy blast doors slid open. Beyond them lay a window looking down into a massive underground hangar. The hangar was empty now, its floor marked with guidance lights and docking clamps. But in 30 days it would hold something that would change everything. She activated a wall display showing a schematic. The image showed a ship 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that existed nowhere else in known space. Human innovation, human desperation, and human stubbornness had created something impossible. 30 days, Ji-won whispered to herself. They think they have 30 days to prepare for an easy victory. They have no idea what is coming. Warning lights began flashing around the empty hangar, red and amber in the darkness. Somewhere far away in the solar system, assembly crews were already working around the clock. The countdown had begun. Ji-won allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about humanity. When you corner a species that refuses to surrender, you do not get submission. You get desperation. And desperation breeds innovation that safe, comfortable civilizations cannot imagine. The transport ship approached Titan through a field of ice crystals that caught the distant sunlight. Captain Minho Choi pressed his face against the viewport, trying to see what waited for him at the shipyards. He had received orders 3 days ago to report to Titan immediately with a hand-picked crew. No explanation, no details, just orders stamped with the highest security clearance humanity possessed. Minho was 38 years old and had spent half his life in space. He had fought pirates in the outer colonies, escorted merchant vessels through dangerous territory, and once held off 4 enemy ships with a damaged cruiser until reinforcements arrived. Earth's military called him their best combat pilot. He thought that was an exaggeration, but he never argued with compliments. The transport docked at a station orbiting Titan. Armed guards met them at the airlock, checking identification 3 separate times before allowing Minho and his crew deeper into the facility. They traveled through corridors that looked brand new, passing through security checkpoints that scanned everything from their DNA to their psychological profiles. Finally, they reached a conference room where Admiral Ji-won Park waited for them. Minho had met the Admiral twice before, both times briefly. She had a reputation for being brilliant and absolutely terrifying when someone failed to meet her standards. "Captain Choi," Ji-won said, not bothering with small talk, "I need to know if you are ready to command a mission that will decide whether humanity survives as a free species." Minho straightened in his chair. "Yes, ma'am." "Good, follow me." She led them through more corridors until they reached a massive blast door marked with warning symbols. The door was thick enough to survive a nuclear blast. Ji-won placed her hand on the scanner and machinery whined as the door began to open. Beyond the door lay a hangar so large that Minho could not see the far wall. And inside that hangar, illuminated by thousands of work lights, sat a ship that should not exist. The Indomitable was 5 kilometers long, shaped like a blade designed for cutting through reality itself. Its hull was dark gray, covered in armor plating that seemed to absorb light. Weapon ports lined its surface, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The bridge section rose from the forward hull like a fortress. Engines at the rear looked large enough to move a small moon. "Dear God," whispered Somin Lee, Minho's chief engineer. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who could fix anything given enough time and spare parts. "That is the biggest ship I have ever seen." "It is the biggest ship anyone has ever seen," Ji-won said. "Humanity has built exactly 1 Dreadnought-class warship. You are looking at it." Hyunwoo Nam, the tactical officer, was already calculating numbers in his head. He was younger than the rest of the crew, only 29, but his mathematical abilities were legendary. "Admiral, how much power does that reactor generate?" "More than Earth's first 50 colonies combined," Ji-won answered. "The Indomitable was designed with one purpose. It fights entire fleets alone and wins." Ara Kang, the medical officer, spoke quietly. "How many crew does it need?" 500 combat personnel, 200 support staff, 300 engineers and technicians. You will have the best people humanity can provide." Minho could not stop staring at the ship. "What are we fighting?" Ji-won explained about the Council's ultimatum, about the 800 warships coming to blockade Earth, about humanity's choice between surrender and war. As she talked, Minho felt the weight of responsibility settling onto his shoulders like a physical thing. "The Council thinks we are helpless," Ji-won continued. "They think 50 ships is the best we can do. They have no idea we have been building this for 15 years. Every advanced technology we discovered went into the Indomitable. Every innovation we made in weapons, shields, and engines is installed on that ship." She pulled up holographic displays showing the ship's capabilities. Minho listened as she described weapons he had never heard of before. Gravitational lance batteries that could tear through space itself, crushing enemy ships like tin cans. Quantum shields that could absorb energy weapon fire and convert it to power. Fusion lances that fired concentrated stellar heat. And something called probability calculus targeting. Hyunwoo leaned forward, fascinated. "Probability calculus? That is my field. I wrote papers about using quantum computing to predict enemy movements." "We know," Ji-won said. "We used your papers to build the targeting system. In fact, you designed it without knowing you were designing it. We took every mathematical model you published and turned them into weapons." Hyunwoo looked stunned. His theoretical work had become something real, something deadly. Over the next week, Minho and his crew moved aboard the Indomitable. The ship was still being assembled, with construction crews working in every section. Minho walked the corridors constantly, learning every passage and junction. The ship was a city that floated in space, complete with its own hydroponics bays, recreation areas, and medical facilities. Salmon spent her time in the engine rooms, talking with the engineers who had built the massive reactors. She learned about quantum containment fields that kept fusion reactions stable at temperatures that should be impossible. She studied power distribution systems that could reroute energy in microseconds, feeding weapons or shields as needed. Hyunwoo locked himself in the tactical center, learning how the probability targeting system worked. It used quantum computers to simulate billions of possible futures, identifying which actions would lead to successful outcomes. In combat, it would tell him exactly where to aim, when to fire, and how enemy ships would react. The system was so advanced that it bordered on predicting the future. Ara prepared her medical bay, knowing that combat meant casualties. She studied the ship's layout, identifying the fastest routes from any section to her treatment centers. She prepared supplies for every possible injury: burns from energy weapons, radiation exposure,
decompression injuries,
psychological trauma. She would treat them all. As the days passed, more crew members arrived. Fighter pilots, gunners, marines, engineers, cooks, technicians. Everyone had been chosen for their skills and their ability to handle pressure. They were humanity's best, brought together for a mission that seemed impossible. Minho ran constant simulations, preparing for the coming battle. The computer showed him scenarios where 800 ships attacked from different angles, using different tactics. The Indomitable won most simulations, but not all. In some scenarios, the ship was overwhelmed by sheer numbers. In others, enemy weapons found weak points in the armor. People died in those simulations. Minho saw the casualty numbers and tried not to think about them as real people. One night, unable to sleep, he went to the observation deck. Earth was visible in the distance, a blue marble hanging in the darkness. Minho thought about the billions of people living there, unaware of what was coming. They went about their lives, working and laughing and arguing, while out here in the shadows, humanity prepared for a war that could end everything. Someone found him there, also unable to sleep. They stood together in silence for a while. "Can we really win?" Soman asked quietly. Minho did not answer immediately. He thought about the simulations, about the weapon systems, about the crew. "The ship can win," he finally said. "Whether we can survive winning is a different question." Soman nodded. She understood. The Indomitable was powerful enough to destroy entire fleets, but physics did not care about bravery or determination. 800 ships shooting at one target would eventually land hits. The question was not whether they would take damage. The question was whether they could deal enough damage before the enemy destroyed them. "I am scared," Somin admitted. "Good," Minho said. "Fear means you understand what we are facing. Anyone who is not scared is a fool." 10 days remained before the Council fleet arrived. The Indomitable was 90% complete. Construction crews worked around the clock, installing the last weapon systems and running final tests. The ship hummed with power as its reactors came online fully for the first time. Minho called his senior staff together in the briefing room. He looked at their faces, seeing his own concerns reflected back at him. They were all afraid. They were all determined. They were all ready to do something impossible. "In 10 days we fight," Minho said. 800 ships against one. The odds are terrible. Many of us will probably die, but we fight anyway because surrender means the end of everything we are. Better to die free than live as slaves. His crew nodded, accepting the reality of what was coming. They would board humanity's greatest achievement and sail it into hell itself. And maybe, just maybe, they would sail back out again. The Council fleet regrouped near Jupiter, their ships forming defensive positions around the gas giant's orbital space. What remained of the once proud armada looked like a wounded animal, scattered and fearful. Zelkoth stood on his bridge, staring at casualty reports that made his compound eyes hurt. 237 ships destroyed, 81 damaged too severely to fight, over 40,000 crew members dead, all from one human ship. The fleet commanders held an emergency conference via quantum communication. Zelkoth could see their faces or the alien equivalents of faces on his display screens. Every species represented looked angry, afraid, or both. "We should leave immediately," said Commander Telvar of the Lumini. Her crystalline body pulsed with dark purple light, indicating deep distress. "We cannot win this fight. That ship is beyond anything we have encountered. We cannot leave," argued General Vex of the Kryn species, a reptilian being with scales that shifted colors based on emotion. "If we retreat now, we show weakness to the entire galaxy. Every species will question Council authority. Chaos will spread." Zelkoth listened to them argue, his mind racing through tactical possibilities. The humans had surprised them with weapons that should not exist. Gravitational manipulation on that scale required technology centuries beyond anything the Council possessed. And those shields, those impossible shields that grew stronger when attacked, defied known physics. But no technology was truly invincible. Everything had weaknesses. Everything could be countered. "We study the battle data," Zelkoth said, interrupting the argument. "We adapt our tactics. We call for reinforcements if needed, but we do not abandon this mission. The Council's credibility depends on us completing our objective." He did not mention the other option, the one he had been ordered to use only as a last resort. Deep in the Eternal Justice's weapon system sat 3 planet-killer missiles. Each one could sterilize an entire world, turning it into a lifeless rock. The Council had authorized their use if the Indomitable could not be stopped conventionally. Zelkoth hoped it would not come to that. Destroying Earth meant killing billions of innocent beings, most of whom had no idea this war was even happening. But orders were orders, and the Council feared humanity enough to consider genocide. Meanwhile, 3 million kilometers away, Admiral Jiwan Park read intelligence reports in her command center beneath Seoul. Her people had intercepted Council communications, using quantum decryption tools that humanity was not supposed to possess. She knew about the planet-killer weapons. She knew the Council was preparing contingency plans. She typed a short, encrypted message to Minho. "End this quickly. They plan orbital bombardment if you fail." The message traveled through quantum entanglement, arriving aboard the Indomitable seconds later. Minho read it 3 times, feeling his stomach twist with anxiety. He had worried about fighting the fleet. Now he had to worry about protecting the entire planet from weapons he could not intercept. "Soman," he called into the ship's comm system. "How fast can you get the ship to Jupiter?" "Full speed, maybe 6 hours," Soman replied from the engine room. She sounded exhausted. Her crew had been working constantly since the battle, repairing damage and preparing systems for another fight. "Why, are we going after them?" "Yes. If we wait for them to come to us, they will have time to prepare better defenses. We need to hit them while they are still scattered and afraid." In her medical bay, Ara worked on the 5 injured crew members from the first battle. One man had burns across 40% of his body from a plasma leak. A woman had lost her arm when a bulkhead collapsed. 3 others had radiation exposure from a breach in the outer hull. They would all live, but their injuries reminded Ara that this ship, for all its power, could still bleed. She finished treating the burn patient and went to find Minho. She found him in his ready room, staring at tactical displays and drinking cold coffee. "You need to sleep," Ara said without preamble. "You have been awake for 20 hours. "I will sleep after the next battle," Minho replied, not looking up from his displays. "There will always be another battle if you keep fighting. You need rest before you make mistakes." Minho finally looked at her, and Ara saw the weight of command in his eyes. He was carrying the survival of the entire human species on his shoulders, and it was crushing him slowly. "How many people did we kill in that battle?" Minho asked quietly. "I see the ship numbers, but I do not see the crew counts." "How many beings died because I gave the order to fire?" Ara sat down across from him. "Somewhere between 30 and 50,000, based on standard crew complements for ships that size." "You know this is not a helpful question. It is the only question that matters. Those were living beings. They had families, friends, dreams, and I killed them. They came here to conquer us," Ara said firmly. "You saved humanity. Yes, people died. War is death. But you did what you had to do." Minho nodded slowly, but the guilt did not leave his eyes. Ara recognized the look. She had seen it in soldiers after every battle throughout human history. The weight of killing, even justified killing, left scars that never fully healed. 6 hours later, The Indomitable accelerated toward Jupiter at speeds that made normal space travel look like crawling. The Council fleet detected their approach and immediately went to battle stations. This time they were ready. The Council had studied the battle data carefully. They understood now that concentrating fire in one location could overload the quantum shields. They understood that spreading out made them vulnerable to the gravitational weapons, so they adopted a new strategy. They formed their ships into tight clusters of 50 vessels each, creating what they called shield walls. Ships in each cluster overlapped their defensive shields, making them much stronger. They kept the clusters spread wide enough that a single gravitational lance could not hit multiple clusters, but close enough that they could provide mutual support. Zelkoth watched the Indomitable approach on his tactical display. This time he felt cautiously optimistic. The humans had won the first battle through surprise and superior technology. But tactics and numbers could overcome technology, given proper application. All clusters prepare firing solutions, Zelkoth ordered. Target their shield generators if possible. If not, concentrate fire on any section until shields fail, then switch to their weapons or engines. The battle began differently this time. Instead of charging into the enemy formation, Minho held the Indomitable at medium range and began a brutal exchange of fire. The gravitational lances struck the Council clusters, but the overlapping shields absorbed much of the impact. Ships still died, but not as quickly as before. The Council fired back in coordinated volleys, dozens of ships targeting the same spot on the Indomitable's shields. For the first time, Soman saw her displays show real concern. Shields at 80%, she reported. 75. They found an effective counter to our defenses. Hyunwoo, adjust targeting priority, Minho ordered. Focus on breaking up those clusters. Kill the ships on the edges first. The fusion lances swung into action, their stellar heat cutting through space. The probability targeting system calculated which ships were most vulnerable, which deaths would cause the most disruption to enemy formations. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their reactors going critical, but this time the Council did not panic. They held their formations, accepted their losses, and kept firing. Zelkoth had ordered his captains to victory or death, and they were following those orders. An alarm blared on the Indomitable's bridge. A section of the quantum shields had failed under concentrated fire. Enemy weapons struck the hull directly for the first time, tearing through armor plating designed to withstand nuclear weapons. Hull breach, decks 15 through 17, Soman shouted. Emergency bulkhead sealing. We have casualties. Ara felt her medical base shake as damage alarms sounded throughout the ship. Her comm system lit up with emergency calls from multiple decks. She started triaging, sending medical teams to the worst injuries first. The Indomitable shuddered under repeated impacts. The Council was paying a terrible price, losing ships with every passing minute, but they were landing hits now. Real hits that killed real people. Shields at 50%, Soman reported. Reactor 2 is overheating. I need to shut it down for emergency cooling. Do it, Minho said. He made a decision, one that he knew would cost lives but might save the ship. All power to forward shields. Hyunwoo, target the cluster directly ahead of us. Pour everything we have into them. The Indomitable changed from fighting defensively to pure aggression. It charged directly at one Council cluster, shields blazing with absorbed energy. Every weapon on the ship fired at once, creating a storm of destruction that no defense could withstand. The cluster shattered. 50 ships died in less than a minute, their formations breaking apart under overwhelming firepower. The Indomitable punched through the debris field, trailing atmosphere and sparking power conduits, but it broke through to the other side. Now, Minho ordered, spin the ship. Fresh shield sections forward. Target the next cluster. The massive ship rotated, presenting undamaged shield sections to the enemy. The tactic worked. By constantly rotating and focusing fire, the Indomitable destroyed the Council formations one cluster at a time. 3 weeks after the second battle, a single Council ship entered Earth's solar system. It was a small diplomatic vessel, unarmed and broadcasting peace signals on every frequency. The Indomitable, still undergoing repairs in orbit around Mars, tracked its approach but did not fire. The message was simple. The Galactic Council requested negotiations. They proposed neutral ground, an orbital platform between Earth and Mars with no weapons and limited security. They acknowledged that humanity had proven its military capability and wished to discuss peaceful resolution. Admiral Ji-won Park read the message with cautious optimism. The Council had lost over 400 ships trying to enforce their will on humanity. Their pride was shattered. Their authority was questioned. They wanted to negotiate because they had no other good options left. She called Taeyang Kim out of retirement and sent him to the negotiations as Earth's representative. The same man who had refused the ultimatum would now dictate peace terms. The negotiations took place in a transparent dome that provided a spectacular view of the solar system. Taeyang arrived first, wearing the same simple black suit he had worn during the ultimatum. He looked older now, the weight of war visible in his eyes. The council representatives arrived in groups, each species sending their diplomats. Zelkoth came personally, his exoskeleton bearing scars from the battles. Telvar of the Lumini pulsed with subdued colors. General Vex of the Kryn kept his scales neutral gray, showing neither aggression nor fear. They sat around a circular table designed to show no species had priority over others. For a long moment nobody spoke. The silence held the weight of thousands of dead and the uncertainty of what came next. Zelkoth spoke first, his translated voice softer than before. Ambassador Kim, the Council acknowledges that we underestimated humanity. Your military capability far exceeds our intelligence reports. We are prepared to negotiate new terms for coexistence. Taeyang nodded slowly. What terms do you propose? Telvar created a holographic display showing a detailed proposal. Humanity would receive full sovereignty over all 47 currently occupied systems. They would gain unrestricted expansion rights to unclaimed systems. They would receive a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. In exchange, humanity would agree to peaceful expansion protocols and would not attack Council species without provocation. It was everything humanity had wanted originally, everything the Council had refused to grant. Taeyang studied the terms carefully, looking for traps or hidden conditions. He found none. The Council was offering genuine peace because they feared the alternative. These terms are acceptable, Taeyang said. However, I would like to propose additional conditions. The alien diplomats looked surprised. They had expected humanity to take their generous offer and be grateful. Zelkoth's mandibles clicked in what might have been concern. What additional conditions? First, the Council will provide humanitarian aid to help rebuild the ships and stations damaged during our conflicts. Second, we establish cultural exchange programs, so our species can learn about each other properly instead of through fear and mistrust. Third, we create a joint scientific research initiative, sharing knowledge for mutual benefit. Fourth, we establish free trade agreements that benefit all species equally. The Council representatives looked at each other in confusion. They had expected demands for territory, tribute, or revenge. Instead, humanity was proposing cooperation and mutual growth. You want to help us? Telvar asked, her crystalline body flickering with colors that indicated confusion. We attacked you. We killed your people. And you want to share knowledge and trade? Taeyang smiled sadly. Yes, because continuing to fight benefits no one. We have proven we can defend ourselves. You have learned that threatening us is unwise. Now we can move forward as equals instead of enemies. He pulled up images on his display, showing the casualties from both sides, human faces and alien faces, all dead because of a war that should never have happened. 47 of my people died aboard the Indomitable. Thousands of your people died in their ships. Every one of them had families who loved them. Every death was a waste. We cannot bring them back, but we can honor their memory by making sure no one else dies for such foolish reasons. Zelkoth felt something unfamiliar, an emotion he had not experienced in decades. Shame. The Council had come to Earth expecting to dominate a primitive species. Instead, they had found equals who fought like demons when threatened, but offered peace when victorious. Your terms are acceptable, Zelkoth said quietly. We will prepare the treaty documents for formal signing. The negotiations continued for 3 days, working out specific details and protocols. But the fundamental agreement was clear. Humanity would join the Galactic Council as an equal member, and both sides would work toward peaceful coexistence. On the 4th day, the treaty signing ceremony took place. Leaders from every council species attended, along with representatives from Earth's governments. News broadcasts carried the event across human space and throughout the galaxy. Taeyang signed for humanity, his hand steady on the electronic pad. Each council representative signed after him, their various appendages or manipulators making their marks. When the last signature was recorded, the treaty became official. Humanity was now a recognized galactic power with all the rights and responsibilities that implied. After the ceremony, Taeyang stood near the dome's viewport, looking at Earth in the distance. Zelkoth approached him, moving quietly despite his size. "I do not understand your species," Zelkoth said. "You fight like demons, showing no mercy to those who threaten you. Then you offer peace and cooperation to those same enemies." Why? Taeyang considered the question. "Because fighting is sometimes necessary, but it is never the goal. We fight to protect what we love, not because we enjoy violence. When the fight is over, we prefer to build rather than destroy. Many species would have demanded revenge. Your ship could have chased my fleet to Neptune and destroyed every last vessel. Instead, you let us retreat. Killing you all would not have made us safer. It would have made us monsters. And monsters eventually destroy themselves." Taeyang paused, choosing his words carefully. "The Council made a mistake treating us as inferiors who needed to be controlled. But we made mistakes too, expanding so quickly without considering how it appeared to established civilizations. Both sides could have communicated better. Both sides chose conflict over conversation. Now we have a chance to do better." Zelkoth clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "I hope you are right, Ambassador. I truly do." Meanwhile, aboard the Indomitable in Mars orbit, Minho gathered his crew for the decommissioning ceremony. Admiral Jiwan Park had arrived to oversee the process personally. The ship that had saved humanity would be preserved as a museum, a reminder of what desperation and innovation could create. The crew assembled in the main hangar, over 1,000 people who had served aboard the ship during its brief but critical service. Minho stood before them, feeling emotions he could not fully name. "We built something impossible together," Minho said, his voice echoing in the vast space. "This ship, this weapon, this fortress of metal and technology. We took it into battle against impossible odds and we won. 47 of our crew gave their lives for that victory. Hundreds more carry scars, physical and mental, from what we endured." He paused, looking at the faces around him. Summon, who had kept the engines running when they should have failed. Hyunwoo, whose mathematical genius had turned theory into devastating reality. Ara, who had saved dozens of lives while the ship shook apart around her. All the gunners, engineers, pilots, and support crew who had made victory possible. "The Indomitable will be remembered as the ship that saved Earth," Minho continued. "But I will remember it as the ship where I learned what humanity truly is. We are not just fighters or innovators or survivors. We are all of those things, but we are also something more. We are people who choose peace when given the option, who offer mercy to defeated enemies, who build rather than destroy when possible." Jiwan stepped forward, holding a small case. Inside was the ship's deactivation key, a physical symbol of command authority. She presented it to Minho. "Captain Choi, the Indomitable is officially decommissioned. Its weapons are locked. Its reactors are shut down. It will serve humanity now as a reminder and a museum, not as a tool of war." Minho took the key and inserted it into the command pedestal. The ship's systems began shutting down one by one. The lights dimmed. The subtle vibration of the reactors faded away. The Indomitable fell silent for the first time since its completion. The crew stood in that silence for a moment, saying goodbye to the ship that had been their home during humanity's darkest hour. Then slowly they began to leave. They had jobs to return to, families to reunite with, lives to resume. The war was over. Ara paused at the airlock, looking back at the dark corridors. She thought about the men and women she had treated, the ones she had saved and the ones she had lost. War was terrible, but it revealed something important about people. It showed what they truly valued, what they would sacrifice for, what they believed in. Hyunwoo downloaded the last data from his tactical systems, preserving the mathematical models and probability calculations.